Chapter 7 Diamonds in the Rough. I was worshiping one evening with my two sisters in the Lord. I was singing and dancing my heart out before Him in the sanctuary, just like King David in the Old Testament. I then noticed a sparkle on the carpet, so I bent down to see what it was. I picked up the sparkly object and observed what looked like a diamond. I placed it in my pocket and continued in my worship. As I twirled around the sanctuary, I noticed another sparkle. I bent down to pick it up and found that it was another diamond-like stone, but of a different size and shape. I placed it in my pocket along with the first one and continued worshiping the Lord. The following morning I woke up and remembered the diamonds in my pocket. I emptied out of my jean pocket, and out fell 3 instead of 2. I knew that God was speaking to me, but I didn't quite know what He was saying yet. I placed the diamonds in a jewelry dish on my bureau and kept the ears of my heart open to hear my Daddy God's voice on this issue. A few days later, I was walking around my church and praying when I came upon another diamond that was just sitting alone on a shelf surrounding the sound booth. I picked it up and brought it to my pastor and proceeded to tell her of the 4 diamonds that God gave to me. It turned out that they were actually rhinestones, which were made to appear as diamonds. It was then that my Daddy God spoke to me. He used my pastor as his mouthpiece, and she said to me, "God is bringing to you diamonds in the rough. He will use you to polish them and make them beautiful." Diamonds are not naturally beautiful. In their natural state, they are called rough diamonds and have the appearance of glassy rocks or rocks of salt. It is the diamond cutter's job to recognize the value and potential of the rough diamond and cause it to surface. After much hard work of cutting, shaping, and polishing, the final product is one of brilliance and beauty. It is then prized and considered to be of great worth. When I think about God's words to me and the analogy of polishing rough diamonds, a Canadian man by the name of Jean Vanier comes to mind. Vanier is a known philosopher, theologian, and humanitarian. For decades, he has advocated for people with developmental disabilities. He has made it his life's mission to bring out the gifts in these less than perfect ones. You could say that he is a diamond cutter for the Lord. He has been quoted as saying, "To love someone is to show them their beauty, their worth, and their importance." I believe that God is calling me to be like Vanier, to take the less than perfect ones that He brings to me, the diamonds in the rough, and find their gifts and cause them to shine with brilliance. My beloved pastor is a believer of this principle. I've heard her say countless times, "Bring out the glory in them." This is one of her life's mottos that she lives by. As a matter of fact, in the 3 years that I've known her, she has done this very thing with me. She has taken me, a rough diamond, and has looked with God's eyes at what He sees in me, the beauty that is hidden. She has polished me with her prayers and words of encouragement and praise, and has caused my beauty to shine on the outside for all to see. Yes, it is God's doing. He is the ultimate diamond cutter, and He trains willing vessels, His hands and feet, to do the same. If there is any beauty in me, it is because of the work that He has done in me. If there are any gifts in me that are glorious or praiseworthy, it is because He placed them inside of me and brought them out of me. I cannot take any credit for the words that you are reading in this book. I am simply a pen in his hand. The words are coming from him. If I did not pray this morning and ask him to use me as his conduit, nothing of consequence would be produced. It would be nothing but ink on a page. Jesus lived out this principle of bringing the glory out of not-so-shiny people. The story of Mary Magdalene is just one example. In the Bible, Mary Magdalene was known to be possessed with 7 devils. I believe that when Jesus first laid his eyes on Mary Magdalene, he saw not only a woman who was out of her mind or behaving like a demon, he saw the faithful, loyal part of her that was hidden inside. He also saw the great ability that she had to love. After Jesus released his mercy and grace to Mary and cast those demons from her, she became a faithful follower of Jesus, even to the cross. When his beloved disciples, all but one, were hiding out in fear for their lives, Mary's love for and loyalty to Jesus kept her by his side until the moment that he drew his last earthly breath. How beautiful and glorious was she in that moment. Jesus held her in such high esteem that he chose her to reveal his resurrected body on Easter morning. Oh, yes, Mary was gloriously transformed during all of the time she spent with Jesus, the master diamond cutter. In order for me to see the glory inside of a person, I must ask God to help me to see them with his eyes. They are his creation, so he is the one to ask. In the moment that they were conceived, his gifts, plans, and purposes for them were also conceived. When God brings a person into my life to minister his love to, I ask him to tell me about that person. I open the ears of my heart and wait on him to show me their gifts and character traits that are beautiful and glorious, but just hidden inside. I ask him to tell me the plans that he has for that specific person. Once I hear from him, I share it with them. I tell them what God says about them, which is the opposite of what the devil has been telling them. They need to hear what God says, because what he says is true and is good and fills them with hope. What God says is encouraging and points them in a direction that would lead them to living life to the fullest. I asked God about one of my sons, and he told me that he would be the pastor of his own church. He has also repeatedly highlighted a specific scripture throughout my son's childhood years pertaining to a verse that describes an eagle rising up and soaring. I keep these things in my heart to remind myself and my son of God's plans for him. Whenever I see my son behaving or living as a turkey, I remind him that he is an eagle. Sometimes in my text to him I say, "I love you, eagle." Sometimes he and I need to be reminded of God's promises, especially because the devil tries every attempt to steer him away from living out his God-given destiny. When my son tells me he's going to be a CEO in corporate America and make millions of dollars, I turn to God and pray that he will have his way in my son's life, that his plan for him to pastor a church will be brought to fruition in his perfect timing. When God had me ministering to a woman who lost her health, her money, and her dignity, God told me that he was giving her a new name, Esther. I shared with her the story of Esther from the Bible. I told her that Esther was a poor orphan girl whom God raised up to marry a king and to save her entire nation from death. God took Esther, a diamond in the rough, and made her glorious. She became beautiful inside and out. She was arrayed in royal garments and given an inheritance of great wealth and dignity. she became noble, honorable, and a leader of her people. This is what God was saying to this woman. This is what he saw in her. This is what he planned for her. Maybe the plan didn't include marrying a king in the natural, but she is certainly a daughter of the King of Kings and has been given a glorious inheritance through the salvation of Jesus Christ. So every so often, I remind her of who she is, whom God says she is, by calling her Esther. The diamond cutter's job isn't easy. Diamonds are very hard stones, and therefore they are not easy to cut and shape. In the same way, God may call us to love or minister to people who seem hard or whose hearts have been hardened. We may be asked to love one who might steal from us, swear at us, take advantage of us, and not appreciate all that we do for them. It is very important to not focus on the imperfections or flaws in them, but keep our focus on the parts that are beautiful and promising, so as to emphasize them and bring them out. We are to shine up or polish the good parts of the diamond. We must remind ourselves who God says they are and keep his vision for the final product. Technically, as Christians, we are all diamonds in the rough. We are all a work in progress, God's workmanship, and we will only be perfect when we take our place in heaven. So if someone calls you a diamond in the rough, you can take it as a compliment. It means that at a glance, you may appear common or ordinary, but he recognizes a very precious and valuable potential within you. Let's make it our goal to see one another the way that God, our brilliant Creator, sees us. Let's adopt my pastor's motto, to pull the glory out of them.